And I'm excited to sit here today with you, Rich and Steve, to kind of go into this topic that a lot of people have a hard time addressing. Even more people don't even know it exists. I'm really excited to dig deep on why, like how the self-criticism it's really been abusive. Like the things I've told myself early on, incredibly destructive. Anybody else was to hear what I was saying, they would think I was being abused by somebody, emotionally, verbally, all of it. And
It's called family.
it's called family, and a lot of it comes from family. You know, the issues,
Yeah.
a lot of the issues that I have, I didn't have a traditional set of parents, so I had a bunch of people that were like my parents. And when you give somebody the right to influence you like a parent, and they're not the parent, it's not always consistent and it's not always positive. And I've had to deal with a lot of the shadows of personality that people had because I was in their home like I was their child, but I wasn't their child. And I'm not trying to blame or anything. I'm just trying to say that I learned a lot of really, I learned to hold myself to a really high standard. So there's a lot of positives that come with self-criticism, like critiquing my own work. I was more receptive to what I thought of my own work rather than what other people thought. And this was really helpful to me. But my goodness, I took it to an extreme. And it's basically abusive. And
But
sometimes
I think you took
needed
it to the extreme the other way. You went the other, like by accepting all that, you excelled.
in
So
time.
you correct.
In time, what
Sure.
happened was I learned to get really good at the things I was doing,
Yeah.
and then I learned to get out of that.
Yeah,
Now,
Belichick, Brady kind of stuff.
I learned to like the go along to get along really plagued me throughout my life, and that part like this self-criticism or this like I know that I'm strong enough to go through it. It's really held me, it's helped me get through some situations, but it really developed some bad habits that ended up being abusive to myself. And so I'm looking forward to going through these things today and finding some nuggets that can help other people thrive. A lot of people are stuck in survival mode, and I hope that we can get them to thrive. The story we tell ourselves is so powerful. It frames the way that we look at things, it frames the way that we perceive things, and we establish some sort of truth or what we call a truth and try to have as much information supported as possible. And so when it's negative about ourselves, it's pretty hard to come home as a as a person that had a good day at work when you told yourself you did poorly all day, or as a good father when you tell yourself that you're never present or you're so disappointing. And to come home and hear those words as well kind of reinforces that. So I believe the way that we frame things is super important to how we're going to move forward. Steve and I go way back, and one of the things that I found out through our discussions are around how, like, he's such a good guy, like such a good guy, but then the things that he tells himself, like the way he beats up on himself, I had no idea that this is the way that it was. It's unbelievable how strongly I can see this fear of failure takes over anything that you're not in, like that you don't have that confidence in. It impacts what you're willing to do, and into a self-destructive way. And now I can see it clearly. You're making me think about myself that way.
Yeah, I mean, probably true. It's one of those things where I've never gone through the therapist route or anything. I probably should huge benefits to that, right? But so I've never really self-diagnosed or really tried to figure it out. It's more brute strength of just trying to muscle through on an ongoing basis. But yeah, for sure. I mean, there's no doubt that I'm sure it rears its head in other. How can it not? So I think that's probably true. When I get close to something, where it's like, okay, there's probably something in me going, you don't want to let them down, or you don't want this to be wrong, or whatever's going on in my head, where that definitely, could be the case for sure. Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, because the bar of what a good life looks like, what a good person is supposed to be, has been set for you. If that makes sense. Where it goes back to like chasing the wrong things. Whereas, take you for example, right? I mean, if there was a line item on like making people feel good, or being a good human being or a good friend, whatever the case may be, people would then be looking, because yours would be huge, right? Your balance sheet would be off the charts. Where then someone would be like, that is how I should operate in society, because God, the ripple effect that this guy has on other people. But the value that's put on things like that is diminished. Like, I know you, so it's a great thing. But if you get a room full of youngsters, they're going, who's got the Ferrari?
But on that though, Steve, what you're talking about is your own ambition on something that you're in control of, like riding the bike. It is your bike, you're riding it, your effort, your everything. And so you ask, hey, well, like, how did we get off track? And it's really when we're letting somebody else's, like, you want to have fun on the bike. And you put yourself in a position and put in the time so that you be good at it. But if you get hesitant because, are they going to like my work? Are they not going to like my work? And what are they going to say? What now, if they said that, what does that mean? And it puts like relationships on the line. This is where we start to change our behavior to try to appease someone else. If they want to fire me for doing the thing that I thought was best to do when I had the freedom to do that, so let them fire me. So, well, John, it's not that easy. What do you mean it's not that easy? What do you mean? If the relationship is that weak, that one mistake on an item that you believe strongly in is going to cause the whole thing to falter, better that you exit it sooner, as hard as it sounds. Like, everybody listening to this has endured and overcome every challenge that's come their way. Every single, I don't care if it's financial, medical, physical, anything, mental, you're here today. You've survived, and we're trying to help you move from surviving to thriving. We have to be taught to thrive because we're taught to survive. We're taught to be less than. We're not taught to be whole. And I love that you brought that point up.
I mean, my biggest takeaway just having this conversation is just the reality that everybody's dealing with very similar things. You know, we're all living 3 very different lives. Like you're out in Florida, you know, you've got a different lifestyle than I do. But like, you know, when you sit down and you have these conversations, you have community, whether it's 3 people or more, you realize like humans are humans. You know, it's like people are dealing with certain things, and you know, the purpose of all of this and the channel, what we're doing is to help just make that better, make lives better by having people feel more comfortable in their own skin and being themselves. So it's kind of nice to kind of get the dialogue, and having Rich here has been great.
We're cousins. We're first cousins. We used to live together. I will say this brought up an old memory of when I was younger, because Johnny and me went to the same school. And we would go in with, when it was parents visit teacher with the students, I remember we went to school, and then we went and saw John's teacher, or it could have been kindergarten or first grade, and they could not stop bragging about how intelligent he was. They were literally talking about skipping not 1 grade, 2 or 3 grades. He was the, you know, like the most intelligent student they've ever seen at that age, and all these different things. I was super excited. Then we went to go see my teacher. I got the complete opposite. I was the worst student in the class. They didn't, talking about maybe setting me back. I don't know what it was. I was flabbergasted. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is, my mother went from being so excited until I ruined the night, to put it bluntly. And we were leaving there, and I remember tearing up and going, my God. I think growing up and excelling in sports, and then being not that great of a student. So if I'm in school, I'm kind of always feeling dumb and telling myself I'm dumb.
But to rest your identity on that, and I believe that's where the problems come in. So when Rich is saying, hey, I'm dumb, like, what? So maybe you could say, I don't know how to get good grades in school, but that doesn't mean you don't know how to think. So be more precise on that, and have it be something honest, not something that you're identified with. In this item, I'm this way, but it doesn't mean that I'm this way. Or lying. Because if you lied one time, that makes you a liar. But are you really a liar? Right? We lie for all different reasons, or whatever the case is. But the idea is saying, I'm not going to identify and you have my identity tied to, I'm a liar because I didn't tell the truth. And I'm not going to let somebody else do that either to me. I'm not going to put that inside of me because it's destructive. Nobody withstands the scrutiny of never having told something that was untrue. So it's like not identifying as that, but just taking that task and say, in that moment or in that item, I didn't do right with it. Now, what do I want to do with that? Maybe I want to go correct it, go address it, whatever the case is. Maybe I want to put more work in. And sometimes I just want to accept that I'm just not naturally gifted at getting good grades in school, and I'm going to put my efforts into something I am naturally gifted in and do much more of that, rather than thinking of myself as being less than because I can't get great grades in school.
So John, let me read what you wrote. Self-criticism has its place. You say it keeps us accountable, humble, and growth-oriented. But when that voice turns hostile, it stops developing you and starts damaging you. So, I mean, what I take from this, and you write it here, is many high achievers have internal standards that border on emotional violence.
Well, it's a hidden killer. If we look at what makes people start down the path to get depressed, it's a negative worldview, right? What gets us down the path towards despair? That there's no way out, and it's a slippery slope once you get going on it. That it's like emotional violence. It's abusive. The things that we say to ourselves, if we were to say them to another person, it would be abusive. If we said them to a child, it could cripple them for the rest of their lives. The idea that it's tolerable and good for us to tell ourselves, sweet words attract people. Now they have to be true. As you said, if I'm telling myself something that's not true, I'm lying to myself, I'm manipulating myself, that's all ugly. But why do I have to sit in judgment of whether or not I'm good or bad? Why do I have to put my identity on the line? Why can't I be me and then say that action, okay, I did a poor job, so I did a poor job. That's it. It doesn't mean I'm a poor worker, I'm a terrible team member, I don't belong on the team. It doesn't need to mean all of those things. It doesn't have to be tied to your identity. It can be simply tied to the task, to the item. I fell short, I missed the shot, whatever the case might be. And you know what? It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. I believe a lot of the self-criticisms start in pursuit of perfection, and that piece is unhealthy, and it's usually not worth it. Very rarely is perfection worth it. And so getting ourselves to be comfortable in our own skin, getting ourselves comfortable that things can be less than perfect, and that sometimes things are ideal when they're less than perfect. And that's a hard concept for a lot of people. Sometimes we need it, like sometimes the drill sergeant is important in telling you what that is, but it's all with the intention of helping you get to good on the other side. And when that intention isn't there, the self-violence that I've put on myself, the mental abuse I've given myself, it wasn't to get to a better spot. It was to get things done or whatever the case is and move on. It didn't build me up. It didn't tear me down with the intent to build me up. It was just aimed at hurting me. Yeah. I'm not really good at masking how I feel. Yeah. Well, let me say it differently. I'm really good at expressing myself, right? I don't want to hide the way that I feel. I want it to be shown. He's visibly upset, probably means I'm upset. And that, I like that alignment. But I was taught, like you even hear how it came out of my mouth, I was taught that you weren't able to express yourself and you had to just kind of go along to get along. And it's like, I still battle that every day, trying to get, that's it. This is not going to be a part of my life. I am not going along to get along. I am not going to look at myself negatively and put a shining light on everything that I do that's less than perfect from someone else's point of view. They don't understand, they don't know, all of those things. I'm just not going to put so much value in what they say. Things are like a pendulum, right? And they overcorrect. They overswing, then they overcorrect. I believe the world is thirsty right now for people being allowed to be themselves. I agree. Yeah. You know, and I think we're at a fascinating time in history.